When you think of Switzerland, you might picture snowy mountains, delicious chocolate, or secretive banks. But behind its peaceful image lies a story of battles, alliances, and survival. How did this small country become one of the most respected neutral nations in the world, yet hold such a powerful history? Let's uncover the secrets of Switzerland. The land of mountains and valleys, Switzerland is often called the heart of Europe, and that name is not an accident. If you look at a map, you will see that this small country sits right in the middle of the continent, surrounded by powerful neighbors like Germany, France, Italy, and Austria. What makes Switzerland truly unique is its land. The country is filled with tall mountains, deep valleys, and sparkling lakes. The Alps, which cover more than half of the country, are both beautiful and dangerous. For centuries, these mountains shaped the lives of the people who lived there. The land was hard to farm, winters were long and cold, and travel was almost impossible during the snowy months. But these same challenges also made the Swiss people strong, tough, and very protective of their land. The natural landscape of Switzerland also gave it something priceless: safety. While big armies marched across Europe fighting wars and invading cities, the Swiss villages hidden in valleys or high in the mountains were difficult to reach. In a way, the Alps acted like giant walls, keeping outsiders away and forcing local communities to learn how to survive on their own. Farmers raised cattle in the meadows, made cheese and butter, and traded with each other. This independence would later become a core part of Switzerland's identity. From the very beginning, the Swiss learned that if they wanted to survive, they had to rely on themselves and their communities. But Switzerland's story is not just about geography, it is also about people. Long before Switzerland became a single nation, the land was home to many different tribes and groups. The Romans once controlled the region, building roads and towns, but after their empire collapsed, the area was left divided. Over time, villages and valleys formed their own rules, their own ways of life. Unlike some other countries where kings ruled with strict power, Switzerland developed in a more local and community-based way. The people valued freedom and the ability to govern themselves. This spirit of independence would eventually lead to the creation of the Swiss Confederation. In the early days, Switzerland was not rich. It did not have large fields for crops like France, or powerful navies like England, or booming cities like Italy. Instead, it had mountains, forests, and hardworking people. Life was not easy, but these challenges created a culture of discipline and courage. The Swiss also became known for their skill in fighting. Even though they lived in small villages, when danger came, they fought bravely to protect their land. Their knowledge of the mountains gave them an advantage in battle. They knew every hidden path, every narrow pass, and every safe place to defend. Outsiders soon realized that attacking Switzerland would never be simple. This first part of Switzerland's story shows us how geography shaped destiny. The mountains were not just scenery. They were shields that kept the people safe and taught them to value independence. The valleys were not just pretty landscapes. They were homes where communities built traditions of hard work and self-reliance. From the very start, Switzerland was not a land of weakness, it was a land of quiet strength, the birth of the Swiss Confederation. The true beginning of Switzerland as a nation can be traced back to the late 1200s. At that time, the land we now call Switzerland was not one united country. Instead, it was made up of small regions called cantons. Each canton was like an independent community with its own rules and traditions. Life in these cantons was simple and centered around farming, herding animals, and surviving in the tough mountain environment. But there was a problem: larger powers in Europe wanted to control this region. The Habsburg family, one of the most powerful dynasties in history, had their eyes on these lands. They tried to take control by sending governors, collecting taxes, and demanding loyalty. This interference did not sit well with the Swiss people, who valued their freedom more than anything else. In 1291, 3 cantons Zürich and Unterwalden came together to form an alliance. This alliance was known as the Federal Charter of 1291, and it is often seen as the birth certificate of Switzerland. The agreement was simple but powerful. The 3 cantons promised to support each other, defend their freedoms, and resist outside control. They swore an oath of loyalty to one another on a meadow called the Rütli, overlooking Lake Lucerne. This moment is remembered in Swiss history as the Rütli Oath, a symbol of unity, courage, and independence. What makes this story even more inspiring is that it wasn't kings or nobles who created this alliance. It was ordinary people, farmers and villagers who wanted to protect their way of life. This new confederation was not a powerful kingdom with castles and knights. It was a loose union of free communities who decided to stand together. Yet, this simple idea turned out to be extremely strong. Over time, more cantons joined the confederation. By the 14th and 15th centuries, Switzerland was growing into a strong and unique nation in the heart of Europe. What made the Swiss Confederation special was its system of cooperation. Each canton had a lot of independence, but when it came to defending their land, they stood as one. This balance between local freedom and collective strength became the foundation of Swiss politics for centuries. The birth of the Swiss Confederation also gave rise to many legends. One of the most famous is the story of William Tell. According to legend, Tell was a skilled archer from Uri who refused to bow before a hat that had been placed on a pole by the Habsburg rulers. As punishment, he was forced to shoot an apple off his son's head with his crossbow. He succeeded, and later, he killed the tyrannical Austrian governor Gessler, sparking rebellion. While historians debate whether William Tell was a real person, the legend became a powerful symbol of Swiss resistance, bravery, and the fight for freedom. The success of the early Swiss Confederation showed the world that unity could defeat oppression. Even though they were small and poor compared to their neighbors, the Swiss proved that determination and cooperation were stronger than fear. The Confederation was not built on wealth or royal power, but on trust and shared values. This was the beginning of a national identity that would carry Switzerland through wars, struggles, and eventually into the modern era. In short, the birth of the Swiss Confederation was about ordinary people taking control of their destiny. It was about saying no to powerful outsiders and yes to freedom. This spirit of unity and independence would become the backbone of Switzerland's powerful history. Switzerland's early battles and victories once the Swiss Confederation was born. It did not take long before its people had to prove their strength. Surrounded by powerful kingdoms and the mighty Habsburg family, the Swiss faced constant threats. The Habsburgs wanted to crush this new alliance and bring the mountain cantons back under their control. But the Swiss were not willing to give up their freedom so easily. Their courage and skill in battle soon earned them respect all across Europe. One of the first great tests came in 1315 at the Battle of Morgarten. The Habsburg Duke Leopold I led a large army to punish the rebellious Swiss. His troops were trained knights on horseback, armed with swords, armor, and banners of power. The Swiss, on the other hand, were simple farmers carrying halberds, spears, and wooden shields. At first glance, it seemed impossible that peasants could defeat trained knights. But the Swiss had one huge advantage. They knew the land. They waited for the Habsburg army in a narrow mountain pass near Lake Jageri. When the knights tried to march through, the Swiss ambushed them. Huge boulders and logs rolled down from the hills, blocking the way. The narrow pass left no room for the knights to move or use their horses. Then the Swiss rushed down with spears and axes, attacking fiercely. Against all odds, the Swiss destroyed the enemy and sent the survivors running. The victory at Morgarten shocked Europe. It showed that ordinary villagers, united and smart, could defeat one of the most powerful dynasties. Another famous battle was the Battle of Sempach in 1386. Once again, Habsburgs sent their knights to crush the Swiss. The Swiss formed tight groups with their long pikes and halberds, standing shoulder to shoulder like walls of steel. The knights tried to break their lines, but the Swiss refused to fall back. During the battle, a Swiss warrior named Arnold von Winkelried made a heroic sacrifice. According to legend, he charged into the enemy's lances, pulling as many as he could into his chest, creating a gap in the enemy formation. This allowed the Swiss to break through and win the battle. Winkelried became a symbol of bravery and selflessness, showing that one person's courage could change the fate of an entire nation. These early victories built the reputation of the Swiss as fearless fighters. They showed discipline, clever strategies, and unmatched teamwork. Unlike the knights who relied on wealth and armor, the Swiss fought for survival and freedom. They learned to fight in tight formations, using long pikes that kept enemies at a distance. This fighting style became known as the Swiss phalanx. and it was so effective that other nations started copying it. For more than a century, Swiss soldiers were considered some of the best warriors in Europe. Because of their bravery and success, Swiss mercenaries became highly sought after. Kings and emperors across Europe hired Swiss fighters to serve in their armies. The reputation of the Swiss was so strong that even today, the Pope's personal guard in the Vatican is made up of Swiss soldiers. But in the early days, this reputation came from hard-won victories on the battlefield, where small groups of farmers defeated armies much larger and stronger than themselves. These early battles were not just military victories, they were turning points in Switzerland's story. Each win proved that unity was stronger than fear, and courage was greater than power. The Swiss Confederation grew in strength and confidence. They had shown Europe that they were not to be bullied or conquered. Instead, they would stand tall, protect their freedom, and carve out their place in history. Switzerland's reputation as fearless mercenaries. After the early victories against the Habsburgs, Switzerland began to gain a powerful reputation. Word spread across Europe that the Swiss were not just farmers living in the mountains, they were some of the toughest fighters anyone had ever seen. Their discipline, bravery, and teamwork made them stand out on the battlefield. As the 14th and 15th centuries went on, European kings and emperors wanted the Swiss on their side. This is how Switzerland developed a long history of being known for its mercenary soldiers, who fought for other nations in exchange for money. Swiss mercenaries were different from many other soldiers of their time. While knights often fought for glory, titles, or land, Swiss soldiers were motivated by survival and loyalty to their comrades. Their greatest strength was the phalanx formation, where soldiers stood close together in tight lines, holding long pikes that stretched out like a wall of spikes. This made it nearly impossible for enemy cavalry or horse-mounted knights to break through. Swiss formations moved with discipline, almost like a single machine. They could smash through enemy lines or hold their ground against much larger armies. This skill made them extremely valuable to rulers who wanted strong, reliable fighters. By the 15th century, Swiss mercenaries were in high demand. France, Spain, the Holy Roman Empire, and even the papacy in Rome wanted them. Whole groups of Swiss soldiers, called companies, would sign contracts to serve in foreign armies. Once they joined, they fought with incredible determination, often turning the tide of battles. Their motto was simple: fight hard, stay loyal, and never break formation. Over time, Swiss mercenaries became famous for their honesty compared to other hired soldiers, who sometimes switched sides or ran away. The Swiss were known to keep their word and fight until the very end. One of the most famous examples of Swiss loyalty is the Swiss Guard in the Vatican. In 1506, Pope Julius II hired Swiss soldiers to protect him and the Papal States. The tradition continues even today, more than 500 years later. The Swiss Guard is still responsible for guarding the Pope, wearing colorful Renaissance-style uniforms and carrying traditional weapons. They are not just ceremonial guards. They are trained soldiers who represent centuries of Swiss reputation as loyal protectors. But there was also a darker side to this history. Thousands of young Swiss men left their homes to fight in foreign wars. Many never returned. They were killed in battles that had nothing to do with Switzerland itself. Families lost sons, brothers, and fathers to wars far away. Some leaders in Switzerland began to worry that the country was losing too many of its people. Over time, rules were introduced to limit foreign service, but the tradition of Swiss mercenaries lasted for centuries. Still, this era shaped Switzerland's image across Europe. To outsiders, the Swiss were not just neutral mountain farmers, they were warriors who could be counted on to fight bravely and effectively. This reputation gave Switzerland influence far beyond its borders. It also helped create a balance. While the Swiss wanted peace at home, their fighting skill abroad made enemies think twice before attacking them. In a way, the mercenary tradition was part of the foundation of Switzerland's later neutrality. They showed the world they could fight fiercely, but they preferred to live in peace within their own borders. The story of the Swiss mercenaries proves an important point. Sometimes, respect comes not only from wealth or power, but from character. The Swiss earned their reputation through discipline, loyalty, and courage. Even today, when people see the Swiss Guard in the Vatican, they are reminded of a history where Switzerland's strength was recognized across the world. The path toward neutrality. After centuries of fighting battles and sending mercenaries across Europe, Switzerland slowly began to change its direction. The Swiss had proven to everyone that they were fearless fighters. They had built a strong reputation for discipline and courage, but constant wars also brought exhaustion and heavy losses. Families were losing sons, brothers, and fathers in foreign lands. And the Swiss countryside was paying the price of endless conflict. This pushed Switzerland toward a new path, one that would eventually make it famous as the world's most neutral nation. The turning point came in the early 16th century. At first, the Swiss Confederation kept growing stronger by winning wars against powerful neighbors. But in 1515, at the Battle of Marignano, everything changed. The Swiss fought against the French in northern Italy. It was a brutal, bloody battle that lasted for 2 days. For years, the Swiss had been unbeatable, but at Marignano, they suffered a crushing defeat. Thousands of Swiss soldiers were killed. The loss shook the entire Confederation. For the first time, the Swiss realized that constant expansion and warfare could bring disaster instead of glory. The Battle of Marignano taught the Swiss an important lesson. They could not always win through force, and endless wars were not worth the cost. After this defeat, the Swiss decided to stop trying to expand their territory through conquest. Instead, they focused on protecting what they already had: their independence, their mountains, and their freedom. This decision was the first step toward what we now call Swiss neutrality. They no longer wanted to be a constant part of Europe's wars. Instead, they wanted to stay safe within their borders, away from the endless struggles between kings and empires. Another factor that pushed Switzerland toward neutrality was its location. Being in the center of Europe meant that powerful nations were always fighting around them: France, Austria, Spain, and later Prussia. Joining sides in every war would only bring destruction to Swiss lands. By staying neutral, Switzerland could avoid being a battlefield for other people's conflicts. Neutrality also made sense for trade. Switzerland's position in the middle of Europe allowed it to connect different regions. If the Swiss stayed neutral, merchants and travelers from all sides could pass safely through their territory. This made neutrality not just a political decision, but also an economic advantage. Religion also played a role in shaping neutrality. In the 1500s, Europe was torn apart by the Protestant Reformation and the wars between Catholics and Protestants. Switzerland itself was divided, with some cantons becoming Protestant and others staying Catholic. If the Swiss Confederation had joined one side or the other, the country could have torn itself apart. Instead, they learned to tolerate these differences and avoid getting too involved in Europe's religious wars. Neutrality, in this sense, became a way to keep peace inside the Confederation as well. By the 17th century, neutrality had become an important part of Switzerland's identity. Other nations started recognizing this too. In 1648, the Treaty of Westphalia officially acknowledged Switzerland's independence from the Holy Roman Empire. This was a huge step forward. Switzerland was no longer just a group of mountain cantons fighting for survival. It was now recognized as a free and independent state that could choose its own path. And that path was clear: avoid wars, protect independence, and remain neutral in Europe's endless conflicts. The path toward neutrality was not a single decision made overnight. It was the result of centuries of lessons, hard-won battles, painful defeats, and the realization that peace was more valuable than constant war. By turning toward neutrality, Switzerland showed wisdom and maturity. They chose stability over ambition, survival over conquest, and peace over glory. This decision would define Switzerland's future and make it unique among all nations. Switzerland, during the Reformation and religious wars in the 1500s, Europe went through one of the biggest changes in its history, the Reformation. This was not just about religion, it was about politics, identity, and power. The Reformation began when Martin Luther, a German monk, criticized the Catholic Church in 1517. His words spread quickly, and soon, many parts of Europe were divided between Catholics and Protestants. Switzerland, sitting right in the heart of Europe, could not escape this storm. In fact, Switzerland became one of the key places where the Reformation took root. A man named Huldrych Zwingli in Zurich became one of the first major leaders of the Reformation outside Germany. He believed that the Catholic Church had become too rich, too corrupt, and too focused on tradition instead of faith. Zwingli called for a simpler, purer form of Christianity. His ideas spread quickly in Zurich and other parts of Switzerland. Soon, many cantons regions started following Protestant teachings. At the same time, other cantons, especially in the central and mountain areas, remained loyal to the Catholic Church. This created a deep division inside the Swiss Confederation. Unlike other countries, Switzerland had no king or single ruler to enforce one religion. Each canton had the freedom to choose. But this freedom also meant that neighbors could end up fighting each other. Tensions rose as Protestant and Catholic cantons disagreed on laws, trade, and alliances. By the 1520s and 1530s, Switzerland was on the edge of religious civil war. Conflict finally broke out in 1531, at the Second War of Kappel. Zwingli himself led the Protestant troops from Zurich. But the Catholics, stronger and better prepared, defeated them. Zwingli was killed in battle, a shocking event that marked the end of his movement's strongest push. After this, both sides realized that endless fighting would destroy the Confederation. So, an agreement was made. Each canton could decide its own religion. This compromise helped keep Switzerland together, even if it meant deep divisions remained. But the story didn't end there. Another Protestant leader, John Calvin, rose to power in Geneva. Calvin was even stricter than Zwingli, and built a system of laws that shaped not only religion, but also everyday life. Geneva became known as a Protestant Rome, a center for Reformation ideas. From Geneva, Calvin's teachings spread across Europe, influencing places like France, Scotland, and the Netherlands. This gave Switzerland a key role in the religious changes happening all over the continent. The divisions between Catholics and Protestants in Switzerland caused struggles for centuries. Sometimes there were smaller wars, and often there was tension. But over time, the Swiss learned an important lesson. If they wanted to survive as one nation, they had to tolerate each other's differences. Neutrality inside their own borders became just as important as neutrality outside. They could not afford to take sides in Europe's massive religious wars, like the 30 Years' War, because doing so would split the Confederation apart. In the end, Switzerland managed to hold together by accepting diversity. Some cantons stayed Catholic, some became Protestant, and they agreed to respect each other's choices. This was not always easy, but it was necessary. It helped shape the Swiss tradition of compromise and coexistence, which is still a big part of their culture today. So, during the Reformation, Switzerland went through internal conflict, painful battles, and strong divisions. Yet, it came out with an important lesson. Peace and unity could only exist if everyone accepted that people could live differently. This idea became another foundation of Switzerland's long road to neutrality and independence. Switzerland in the Napoleonic era, by the late 1700s, Europe was once again in chaos. The French Revolution had shaken the continent, and a new leader, Napoleon Bonaparte, rose to power in France. He was not just a general, he was a conqueror who wanted to reshape all of Europe under his influence. For centuries, Switzerland had managed to stay mostly independent. But during the Napoleonic era, even the Swiss could not avoid being caught in the storm. In 1798, French troops invaded Switzerland. For many Swiss people, this was a shocking event. Their country had always been protected by its mountains and strong traditions of freedom, but the French army was powerful and determined. Napoleon wanted Switzerland not only because of its location in the center of Europe, but also because of its wealth and trade routes. The French quickly defeated the Swiss and forced them to accept a new system of government called the Helvetic Republic. The Helvetic Republic was modeled after the French system. It replaced the old confederation of cantons with a centralized government. For the Swiss, this was a huge change. They were used to governing themselves in their local cantons, with traditions of independence and direct democracy. Suddenly, they were told that power would come from a central authority controlled by France. Many Swiss resisted this change, and uprisings broke out in different regions. But the French were too strong, and the Helvetic Republic stayed in place, at least for a while. However, the new system was deeply unpopular. It went against centuries of Swiss traditions. The Swiss people valued local control and independence, and they did not want outsiders telling them how to live. On top of that, The Helvetic Republic faced constant financial problems, political fights, and even civil wars. Instead of bringing unity, it caused more division. By the early 1800s, it was clear that this experiment was failing. In 1803, Napoleon himself stepped in to fix the situation, created what was called the Act of Mediation, which restored much of Switzerland's old system. The cantons regained their independence, but they also agreed to work together as part of a looser confederation. In many ways, the Act of Mediation was a compromise. It balanced local freedom with a stronger sense of national unity. Even though it came from Napoleon, this system was closer to what the Swiss had always valued. When Napoleon's empire finally collapsed in 1815 after his defeat at Waterloo, Europe's leaders gathered at the Congress of Vienna to redraw the map of the continent. For Switzerland, this was a turning point. The major European powers agreed to recognize Switzerland's permanent neutrality. This meant that Switzerland would not take sides in wars, and in return, its independence and borders would be respected. This was a huge victory for the Swiss. After centuries of battles, invasions, and outside pressure, Switzerland now had official recognition as a neutral nation. The Napoleonic era was painful for Switzerland, but it also helped shape its future. Being invaded and forced into the Helvetic Republic reminded the Swiss of how important their independence and traditions were. The experience showed them that they did not want to be ruled by outsiders or dragged into endless European wars. By 1815, neutrality was not just an idea, it was an official policy backed by Europe's most powerful countries. From this moment forward, Switzerland began to focus on building peace and stability within its own borders. It no longer tried to expand or fight abroad. Instead, it became a safe, neutral land in the middle of Europe's conflicts. The Napoleonic era, though difficult, was the final step in turning Switzerland into the neutral nation the world knows today. Switzerland in the World Wars. When the 20th century began, the world was entering one of its most dangerous times. Two global conflicts, World War I and World War II, shook almost every nation on Earth. Switzerland, sitting right in the middle of Europe, faced incredible challenges. Surrounded by powerful countries at war, it had to defend its neutrality more strongly than ever before. The way Switzerland managed to stay out of both world wars is one of the most fascinating parts of its history. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, Switzerland declared its neutrality immediately. This meant it would not take sides with either the Allied powers like Britain and France, or the Central powers like Germany and Austria-Hungary. But being neutral did not mean Switzerland had no role. Swiss mobilized their army to protect their borders. Soldiers guarded the mountain passes and railway lines to make sure no side could use Swiss land to attack the other. At the same time, Switzerland became a place for diplomacy. Since it was neutral, it hosted peace talks, negotiations, and humanitarian efforts. The International Red Cross, which had been founded in Geneva in the 1860s, played a vital role in helping prisoners of war and wounded soldiers. Switzerland showed the world that neutrality did not mean weakness, it meant responsibility. Still, World War I was not easy. The Swiss economy suffered because trade routes were blocked by the fighting around them. Food shortages created hardship for ordinary families. On top of that, the country was divided in its feelings. Some Swiss Germans sympathized with Germany, while many French-speaking Swiss supported France. This caused tension inside the nation, but the Swiss government worked hard to keep the country united. In the end, Switzerland survived the war without being invaded, and its reputation as a neutral country grew even stronger. Then came World War II, 1939 to 1945, an even greater test. Once again, Switzerland declared neutrality, but this time, the threat was much more serious. Nazi Germany, under Adolf Hitler, surrounded Switzerland from almost every side after it conquered France and Austria. Many feared that Hitler would invade Switzerland to control its railways, banks, and resources. The Swiss government prepared for the worst. The army created a strategy called the National Redoubt. This plan focused on using the Alps as a fortress. If Germany invaded, Swiss soldiers would retreat into the mountains, destroy important bridges and tunnels, and fight from hidden strongholds. The idea was simple. Even if the flatlands were taken, the heart of Switzerland would be impossible to conquer. Fortunately, Hitler never invaded. Historians debate why. Some say it was because Switzerland was too difficult to conquer with its mountains and well-prepared army. Others argue that Germany found it useful to keep Switzerland neutral for financial reasons, since Swiss banks and trade routes played a role during the war. Whatever the reason, Switzerland managed to stay independent while nearly every other country in Europe was dragged into the conflict. But neutrality during World War II was not without controversy. Switzerland traded with both the Allies and the Axis powers, and its banking system was used by Nazi Germany to store wealth. Some critics argue that Switzerland could have done more to resist the Nazis. At the same time, Switzerland also took in many refugees, though not all were allowed to stay, and this remains a debated part of its history. When the war ended in 1945, Switzerland had once again survived without being invaded. Its cities were intact, its government was stable, and its people were safe. While much of Europe lay in ruins, Switzerland stood as a symbol of stability. Its neutrality had been tested by the most dangerous dictators and armies in history, and it had endured. The experience of both world wars cemented Switzerland's global image. It was not just a small country hiding in the mountains, it was a nation with a strong will, clear identity, and a powerful commitment to neutrality. From then on, Switzerland would be known as a safe haven in a world full of conflict. Modern Switzerland and its global role after surviving the two world wars. Switzerland entered the modern age with a reputation like no other. The country was seen as a place of peace, stability, and trust. While much of Europe had been destroyed and was rebuilding from the ashes of war, Switzerland remained intact. Its cities were safe, its economy was strong, and its political system was stable. This gave Switzerland a unique role in the modern world, one that continues today. One of the most important aspects of modern Switzerland is its neutrality in global politics. Unlike most other countries, Switzerland does not join military alliances. For example, it is not part of NATO, the military group led by the United States and Europe. Instead, Switzerland focuses on independence and neutrality. This allows it to act as a middle ground where countries in conflict can meet and talk. Geneva, one of Switzerland's largest cities, has become a center for international diplomacy. Many global organizations are based there, such as the United Nations office at Geneva, the World Health Organization WHO, and of course, the International Red Cross. Because Switzerland is neutral, countries from all over the world trust it as a safe place for negotiations and peace talks. Switzerland also plays a big role in the world economy. Its banking system is famous for privacy and security. For many years, people from all over the world put their money in Swiss banks because they trusted the system and the country's stability. This has brought Switzerland's wealth and influence. At the same time, the country has built a strong economy in other areas too. Swiss companies are world leaders in industries like pharmaceuticals, engineering, finance, and of course, luxury goods. Watches from Switzerland, such as Rolex and Patek Philippe, are symbols of quality and precision. Swiss chocolate and cheese are loved worldwide, becoming part of the country's identity. Another important feature of modern Switzerland is its political system. The country is famous for its form of direct democracy. Citizens regularly vote on important national issues through referendums. This means ordinary people have a direct say in how their country is run, not just politicians. This system keeps the government close to the people and ensures that Switzerland, as traditions of independence and freedom remain strong. It is one of the reasons why Switzerland is often ranked as one of the most democratic and free countries in the world. Switzerland's neutrality also extends to its military policy. The country does not join foreign wars, but it still maintains a strong defense system. Every Swiss man is required to serve in the military for a period of time, and the army is designed mainly for defense, not attack. The idea is simple. Switzerland does not threaten other countries, but it makes sure no one can easily invade it either. The tradition of self-defense connects back to the spirit of the old Confederation and the victories of the past. In modern times, Switzerland has also played a major role in humanitarian work. Through the Red Cross and other organizations, it has helped provide aid to people in war zones, natural disasters, and refugee crises around the world. Switzerland may not send soldiers to fight, but it sends doctors, negotiators, and humanitarian workers to save lives. This has earned it global respect. Today, Switzerland is more than just a small mountain nation. It is a country with global influence far beyond its size. Its neutrality, democracy, economy, and humanitarian efforts make it stand out as a model of peace and stability. While other countries fight for power and dominance, Switzerland shows that strength can also come from neutrality, fairness, and cooperation. Switzerland's legacy and lessons for the world. Switzerland's story is not just about mountains, chocolate, or fancy watches. It is about how a small country, surrounded by powerful neighbors, managed to survive for centuries by making smart choices. From fierce battles in the Middle Ages to modern diplomacy in Geneva, Switzerland has built a legacy that many nations admire. The lessons from this story are not only for the Swiss people, but for the whole world. One of Switzerland's greatest legacies is the idea of neutrality. At first, neutrality was a way to survive. The Swiss could not afford to fight endless wars against bigger countries, so they chose peace. But over time, neutrality became more than just survival. It became a moral principle. By staying neutral, Switzerland showed that a country could be respected without taking sides in every conflict. Even during the World Wars, when Europe was in flames, Switzerland stood firm, protecting its independence and offering a place for peace talks. Today, in a world still full of wars and disagreements, Switzerland reminds us that sometimes the strongest position is not to fight, but to mediate. Another important lesson is the value of unity and diversity. Switzerland has 4 national languages: German, French, Italian, and Romansh. Its cantons have different cultures, religions, and traditions. In the past, these differences almost tore the country apart, especially during the Reformation. But instead of breaking up, Switzerland found a way to live together. Each region was allowed to keep its own identity, while still being part of the larger confederation. This balance of local independence and national unity is rare, and it shows how respect and compromise can hold a nation together. In a world where many countries struggle with divisions, Switzerland is an example of how diversity can be a strength. Switzerland also teaches the lesson of self-reliance combined with cooperation. The Swiss people are known for their discipline, hard work, and independence. From the early days of farming in the mountains to building world-class industries, they learned to rely on themselves. At the same time, they understood that cooperation was necessary for survival. The Swiss Confederation was built on the promise that cantons would stand together against outside threats. This balance, being independent but also cooperative, has helped Switzerland succeed for centuries. Another part of Switzerland's legacy is its commitment to democracy. Unlike many countries where kings or dictators ruled, Switzerland gave power to its people through direct democracy. Citizens regularly vote on important issues, from taxes to foreign policy. This system keeps the government accountable and ensures that people feel connected to their country's future. For nations struggling with corruption or lack of trust in leaders, Switzerland's democracy offers a model of fairness and participation. Switzerland's role in humanitarian efforts is also part of its legacy. The International Red Cross, founded in Geneva, has saved countless lives in wars and disasters worldwide. By choosing to help others instead of fighting, Switzerland has gained respect far beyond its borders. It shows that even a small country can make a big difference if it focuses on compassion and responsibility. Finally, Switzerland's story gives a lesson about strength without aggression. The Swiss army is designed for defense, not for invading others. Their famous mountain fortresses and strong defense plans send a clear message. We do not want to fight. But if you attack us, we will protect ourselves. This philosophy has kept Switzerland safe and respected. It shows the world that true strength does not always come from expansion or conquest, but from standing firm and protecting what is yours. In the end, Switzerland's legacy is one of peace, resilience, and wisdom. It is a reminder that even the smallest nations can shape history if they remain true to their values. From the oath at Rütli Meadow to the modern-day halls of Geneva, Switzerland has proven that neutrality, unity, and independence can create a powerful history. For the world today, divided by conflicts and power struggles, Switzerland's story is not just history, it is a lesson in how to survive and thrive with dignity. Switzerland's story shows us that even the smallest nations can shape history with courage, unity, and wisdom. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, imagine what other hidden stories are waiting to be told. Don't just stop here, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it with someone who loves history as much as you do. Together, we'll keep uncovering the secrets of our world one story at a time.